there, hey there, hi there to the Ubi Sinks, a.k.a. the Cincos, a.k.a. Bear Den Nation, a.k.a. dear listeners, Guten Tag, que pasa y bienvenidos, and welcome back to Uber Cinco. If you're returning to the den, you know the drill, and I hope you brought some salmon because we're hungry for top fives, and this is going to be festive. This is Uber Cinco, the podcast where we deep dive top fives. I'm Mitch Brinkman, your host for today, and our matchup. You know him. You've heard them, hopefully. And here they are. The guy who brought you 2 girls, 1 sampler platter, and a bad date. It's Brian. The moon landing was real. Ernst. Say hello, Brian.
Hey-o. That's me. Moon landing's real.
That is a shocking opinion to have, I have to say. But moving right along. And the producer of the tawdry thriller From Milan to Minsk, it's Nathan. How wide does that umbrella open? Hennenfent. Nathan. Good day, sir. How are you?
Good day. Couldn't be better.
Excellent.
I mean, I could be better in many, many ways, but we'll just go with fine.
Yes. Don't feel the need to tell the truth. Just, lie and let's move on. Cool. All right. Today, our contestants will reveal and defend their top 5 historical periods to visit. If this is your first time in the Uber Cinco Den, bear with and let us wake you out of hibernation with a quick rundown of the rules.
Each player in the den has spent time with today's topic arranging their top 5 answers in order of importance. Those answers have been submitted to the host who will moderate the game, awarding points to the player with the most poignant answer.
Starting with their number 5 choice, we will move up the ranks until we reach each of their top answers. But if both contestants happen to have the same answer on their list, well, we have an Uber stare-down.
You will hear the official Uber Cinco siren, and both players must reveal their answer and what number they ranked their submission. An Uber stare-down is all or nothing, with one player earning 3 points. After all answers have been read, the host will reveal the final score.
Also, a very intense reminder. Don't forget to stick with us until the end of the show where I, Mitch Brinkman, will give you my Fast 5 send-off where I'll blow you to the moon with my Fast 5 Billie Eilish style nightshirts. Now, as host, I'm entitled to institute a house rule, and for today's game, which is inspired by a people's history of the United States, so anytime you guys hear me say, Howard's in, stop and I'll challenge an inaccurate generalization that has been made about a certain time period or historical figure. You'll have 15 seconds to defend your statement, and if done poorly, you will be dinged a point, of course. But if you make me look like a pompous hog, well, you'll gain a point with your prehensile mind. So do your periods justice and present history well. And with that preamble, it was predetermined by the pre-show thumb war that acted as a preview of today's battle. Brian, you've been pre-selected to present your preempting number 5 historical period to visit, which predates present time, of course. Brian, proceed, Nathan.
All right. So I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite as I go through my list for the day because certain choices on my list would affect other actions as I move through history. So bear with me, but I'm choosing times in history that interest me and where hopefully my modern knowledge would have made a difference, of course, before I either get shot, hacked, or murdered in some other creative way during this time period.
Sure.
Or it's just a time I want to know more about. So number 5 is ancient Egypt, specifically 2570 BC, in the middle of construction of the Great Pyramids of Giza. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but I went through a huge Egyptian phase around 5th or 6th grade. I swear.
Sorry.
No.
So I thought you had gone through the phase while we knew you and we just missed it. And I was like, I feel bad now. But
I would have remembered that.
Yeah, I would have been.
I'm walking everywhere. Where's the Egyptian? No.
Brian, way too much cat eye. Way too much cat eye makeup.
But Ra, the sun god, said I should do it. So I used to tape like Discovery Channel specials on King Tut and the Nile on VHS, and I would mark them and label them and keep them organized, ready to go. I would take books out of the library about ancient Egypt, and then I would bring them over to my friend's house because his parents were lawyers, and I could make copies of the book for free in their basement copy machine. So it was borderline obsessive at this time in my life. So it stands to reason that this time period would make my list. And I chose it because I have to know how the pyramids were built. I mean, this specific time, 2570 BC, is supposedly right in the middle of construction. So they would have had time to get their processes right, get them in order to where they're most likely at their most efficient of tossing slaves and limestone at the project until it was done. So I just need to make sure I can see what technology that they were using. That's my most curious thought. And then I want to see if the theory that the pyramids were power generators has any legs. So,
tell me about that theory. I'm not familiar with that one. Is this a conspiracy theory? It sounds like one.
They're trying to figure it out because the Great Pyramids as they stand do not have the same elaborate innards that either smaller pyramids or other graves of royalty had. So there's a lot less space for treasure. There's not as many supposedly art on the walls in these certain chambers. So one of the theories are that they were used as a giant battery. So the pyramids as they stand right now is actually the inner layer of the pyramid. And there used to be giant limestone on the outside that insulated the inside. And granite was in the inside, and granite is slightly radioactive. And they think there was a way of possibly generating a few volts of power from either sun radiation, heat radiation. I don't know how it was, but somehow it kind of ties to the theory of remember the Baghdad Battery that they found? It was some sort of ancient Mesopotamia thing too. And it looked like it had a cylinder inside some sort of salt water. And like they were determining that they maybe figured out a way to generate a little bit of electricity with these giant vases that they made.
Like when you say a little bit of electricity,
so
how much could they turn on like a nightlight?
I don't know. I've dove this far into it. I would say it's probably not much more than the power of a light bulb.
Yeah.
Seems like it'd be easier. You'd have to find a better way than hundreds of years of brutal slave labor to just get a light bulb going.
Yeah, so we'd have to deep into that. But then an earthquake in 1303 knocked off this limestone that was around it, and they reused it for other things, and nobody kept track of where they moved these to. So there's no real way of studying the insulation, whatever. But either way, to go against your Howard Zinn theory of this would be more of America, but for Egypt, I saw a Guardian article from 2010 that said one guy thought that the builders weren't slaves because they found a bunch of burial sites for workers in which they were treated in a different way than you would have treated like a slave grave. Like they were like buried with honors because they helped build this for the royalty. So I was like kind of interested whether that theory has legs too. It'd be cool to see all the stuff that we don't know about.
Now, my sixth grade history textbook is making me want to scream Howard Zinn at you, but that does sound that sounds right. Like I'm convinced. I think that's very interesting. I know so little about ancient Egypt. And I'm trying to think of
we're talking 4,000 years ago. There's with not a lot of written records still around, which is pretty
There's
cool
there's a little just random fact I've come across on the internet that makes you think about time in a different way, which is that Cleopatra, probably the most famous ancient Egyptian, she lived closer to the present day when this is being recorded than she did to when the pyramids were constructed. So that's how long ago it was. Like, she's closer to you and I than so. How
long the ancient Egyptian reign lasted?
Yeah,
could this electricity being generated on the inside, right? The inside core of the pyramid, technically?
Some sort of funneling down to a central point.
Could it be...
What that is, we don't know.
Could it be like a weird, honestly, like a weird funhouse sex thing where you get drunk and then you go in there and you touch a thing that sparks you up and you go, ooh,
that would be
hello.
Ideal. That would be ideal. If I had to make a guess what they were using it for, they figured out how to electroplate. So coating things in gold, silver, things like that. If I had to guess what they used it for, that would have been my theory. Like, hey, let's just coat this piece of nickel in gold so it's not solid gold so we can use the rest of the gold for other shit.
Yeah.
But who knows?
A couple weeks ago, in an online trivia game that I play with some friends, I did a round where I asked my brother-in-law a series of questions that he could never get right. And then just had people guess whether I gave the right answer or his. And one of them was how many blocks are in the Great Pyramid of Giza. So if you guys want to just take a quick stab, each of you, how many blocks in the Great Pyramid of Giza? I do know the right answer. Just toss some numbers at me.
Well, like this is just one pyramid, right? Because
this is the largest of the pyramids. Yeah.
I'll let Mitch go first.
I'm going to say 9,300.
Brian?
I would guess higher in the 20s, more like 25,600.
2.3 million.
Holy! Can we swear on this podcast?
Fuck yeah, we can.
Oh, fuck! Holy buckets! Sorry, I didn't mean to say buckets so hard there, but wow.
And each one of those probably would have been like a multi-feet by multi-feet rectangle at least.
I think most of the one, as they went higher, it goes down. But also you don't see all of them because that's so many on the inside of the structure as well.
Yeah.
It's a staggering amount of.
That's I would not have guessed that high. That's crazy.
Wow. And for every 5 blocks put in place, you have one dead worker probably. So that's like 400,000 dead guys.
Yeah, that's a lot of dead people.
Buried with honors, though. Buried with honors.
Hopefully, we like to think
that makes it all worth it. I think being buried with honors would be being buried in a fucking pyramid, but it's just me.
All right, we got all these dead guys. We got to build another pyramid for them. Shit, like,
it's gonna be another
2 million more dudes in here. Let's go.
Be another 40 years before we put these 10 guys to rest.
So you want to unlock the great secrets of the pyramids. I love that. Great, very nice, Nathan. Let's move it right along to your number 5.
Yeah, I would want to go to ancient Rome, specifically the time of Julius Caesar and then the passing of power over to Augustus Caesar.
That's it. There we go.
Ancient Rome.
We've got an uber stare down, boys. Now, what's interesting, this is the first time I think this has ever happened where a number 5 has to stare down with a number 1. So, yes, Brian, you better get your horses ready to run, boy, because you won't have that 3 point sitting there to try and make that comeback late in the game. Nathan, you go first.
Well, a lot starts in ancient Rome. There's a famous Monty Python bit about what have the Romans done for us, and it's the roads and the aqueducts and the running water and the central air, and it goes on and on and on. So much agricultural stuff. And so first of all, I would want to see just how modern ancient Rome actually was, how comfortable it was for the upper classes. Obviously, it was going to be terrible for the poor people, but but all of history is. Yeah. And then the characters from this era, more than any other characters from that far back in history, or even like 1,000 years further ahead, just seems so alive to all of us. I think we all have an idea of who Julius Caesar was and what he was like, and Mark Antony and Cleopatra and the love triangle, several other like philosophers, and Cicero was a senator at the time. All these people that they've been portrayed on film and in TV so many times in so many different variations, and to actually meet these people would just be fascinating. To be present at the actual assassination of Julius Caesar, see how that went down. And going off of that is, you wouldn't see this at the time because this was Rome sort of rising to its absolute peak, but to also see the signs of, this is Rome fell, the Roman Empire and civilization eventually declined. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be a cycle in history, and one we might be living through right now. But just to kind of pick up on all of this great achievement in architecture was going on, the arts and the music and the technology, something was rotten somewhere, and being able to sense that would be pretty amazing. And then the final thing, before I let Brian say his piece on it, is the idea of parentage in history. So Caesar allegedly fathered a child with Cleopatra, and that just seems incredibly convenient. And a lot of things in history like that seem very convenient. And the TV show Rome, for anybody who hasn't seen it, the final episode kind of ties everything together about that in a very cool way. And I won't give it away, but it makes me think a lot about, you talk about the lineage of different royalty and anything. It's like, well, here's the king and queen and their offspring was this and their offspring was this. And my question is, how do you know who was fucking the queen? Like, this is just, it's complete. If we could have Maury Povich and his DNA tests and saying, oh, you said you fucked the queen. The test says that's a lie. Like, I think a lot of this stuff would be thrown into chaos. And I think the most interesting and intriguing place to start that investigation would be with Caesar and Cleopatra and Mark Antony. I would love to have been there. It makes for great entertainment from Shakespeare all the way to HBO. I would love to see it in person.
I just got an email here from History Now, and it says that Julius Caesar was assassinated with a knife by Professor Pickles in the olive oil closet. So I don't know if that's true or not. I've never seen this website that I just got an email from, but that might be a thing. So does that sound right? I don't know.
Did it say it was in the month of March? As long as it's got that, I believe it.
It says it was in the Eyes of March, whatever that is.
The eyes, yeah.
Yes.
Now I'm curious about aqueducts. Those are great. Those are fun.
Yeah, who doesn't love an aqueduct?
Right? Yeah, no, those are amazing. Those are amazing. Was this also the same area that the Hanging Gardens of Salonika were built? Was that in this?
That would have been in Babylon, so Middle East, I believe.
Oh, that was Babylon. Oh, okay.
I believe, yeah.
But they benefited from the aqueduct. Maybe
probably
design.
Water said plants.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I'm reaching here, obviously. Now, in my reading and the research on this topic, my favorite Caesar was Marcus Aurelius. Personally, he was
actually mine too.
He was such a nice guy. He was all about philosophy, and he was it was like the beginning of was it the Stoicism or whatever, the Stoics. Mm-hmm. Beautiful guy. I believe that was the good guy in Gladiator, the film, right? The one that was killed. Yes. Yeah. So
and it was his son who absolutely lost his goddamn mind.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Which again brings into question: was it really his son? I don't know.
True. And was it really a stretch for Joaquin to go from Gladiator to the Joker? No, I don't think so. I think he's just crazy. Okay, Brian. Sorry to take it off Rome, but let's go to Brian though.
All right, so mine's a little bit more specific. I went a little bit further into the Roman Empire. I picked the Roman Empire around 100 AD. So this would have been at their peak. So it's the peak of Roman conquering. They got about 5 million square kilometers, and they're really selling their way of life around the world. So this way of life has a huge effect on the rest of history going forward, and is why I put it at my number one. I have to go back and course correct some of the more unfavorable parts because of how much effect they had on the world. So I decided to go back because I have one main goal, and that is to adjust modern Christianity. So hear me out. The main stories written about Christ came about 30 AD. So I figured by 100 AD, I'll have some copy to read that I can make some edits to. That's been around for a little bit. It's settled. We can start making some, I'll have enough time before I die at around 40-ish in this time period to make an impact with my edits. So by having a huge influence on the New Testament with my knowledge of the 20th and 21st century movies, I can spice this text up with more engaging stories that don't lead people to believe damaging rhetoric, but instead just have killer stories to read. So first step, no God. We'll have to say there was one to ease the transition, but he loved us so much that he gave us the keys and said, take it from here. So you get one earth, one shot at life. So take care of your shit so your future little shit's got a nice place to stay. Second step, make a bunch of awesome action heroes written in 20th century English. So there's no way the intent of said writings can be reinterpreted or misinterpreted in any way. And in this new Bible that we mass produce is almost like a mini library that has everything from Grey's Anatomy to Harry Potter. Super informative, highly entertaining. And now
I'm sorry, but Grey's Anatomy and Harry Potter, are those really on the opposite end of the spectrum?
Well, we have to have some sort of, I'll get to this. Wait, this is going to make sense.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
Because by having items that are of factual nature of some kind, that some helping medical issues from there and entertaining people, we're going to eliminate the Dark Ages because we're giving them so much knowledge up ahead. So we're going to get 1,000 frickin' years of innovation back. So take the Renaissance and the Enlightenment and move them up to 300 AD. Boom. All of history now shifts, meaning we're 1,000 years ahead of where we are right now in the modern times. And now how cool would it be if we got the basics right that early? So no killing in the name of some ghost in the sky that doesn't give a shit about us. No killing other folks who had a different ghost, making their stories a little different. Mixed cuisine everywhere. I mean, this means that aviation would have hit at 799 AD. The internet would have hit around 885 AD and Napster in 999. So who knows where we'd be today if we fixed Christianity in the ancient Roman Empire and gave us 1,000 years back that we've missed.
Okay, let's immediately do a podcast as if that happened and it's like 1910 right now, and give me 5 historical periods you want to visit from the New World.
Okay.
No,
let me go watch some Futurama and
Wow. We're doing this podcast from Europa, one of the moons of Uranus, I think.
I'm sorry.
Or Jupiter. I didn't do my research. I don't actually know. Okay.
NASA no longer uses profane language to describe planets. You bad boy. That's minus sepia. That's a number in this. It's not just a color tone. Sorry. Okay.
Times have changed.
Crap. Okay. Wow. Oh boy. This is really tough. Okay. This is really, really tough because Brian took this thing and also just noticed he's drinking a brown cow. What's it called? No, spotted cow. Sorry.
Oh,
spotted cow.
Spotted cow. He smuggled it across the border.
He smuggled it across, and that shouldn't give him a bonus point, and I don't think it will. But man, this is so different because Brian just took this and he ballooned it out. He ballooned it out into a whole new world and a whole new idea, which I love that confidence, and I'm also kind of like, it's like, is he trying to take over the show? I don't know. But I do love the confidence. So Nathan, I apologize, but I'm going to go with Brian on the super stare down. Brian, congratulations. You got all 3 points. I like that you gamed it out. I like that you went forward, and I like that you did the math. And I like that I know now that Napster can be disregarded by how early can I disregard Napster? You said by
999.
By 999, I can put Napster behind me forever.
Before the turn of the century.
That's great. I love that. That helps me so much. I can really celebrate my 1,000 much better without Napster there.
Well, you'd also have to worry about Y1K though. Just throwing that out.
and that doesn't roll off the tongue as easy, so I'm not as afraid of it, honestly.
I will say I'm furious at you, Mitch, for denying me the 3 points, but our Heavenly Father will forgive you.
Wow.
Not my new world.
All right. That brings us to our number 4s. You know what? I'm going to do something different today. Brian, give me a number between Bill Clinton and Teddy Roosevelt.
1956.
That's great. And President was at that point? Anyone who knows that one?
Eisenhower?
Bing, 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 bing. Brian, you go first for your number 4. There we go.
I just get to choose twice. All right. So for my number 4, I have picked the Roaring 20s, but being in Chicago and New York.
Interesting. Okay.
So I have this thing because I just want to experience both. I like this time period, but I feel like both cities offered very different vibes during that time.
Okay.
So this is an easy choice for me because being a bootlegging, Hollywood influencing, stock market investor who pulls out in 1928 flapper lover sounds like a pretty damn good time. So Music is getting better with jazz and blues out of the Harlem Renaissance. This is the only time period on my list where I truly look forward to being the bad guy, because I get to take no shit as a mid-level mobster in the old Hollywood sense of the myth. Not like the shaking down immigrants for 30% of their income kind of mobster, more like just running from the law as a bootlegger seems kind of fun.
Yeah, the cutesy version.
Cutesy version.
Okay.
And then using my mob money to buy large apartment complexes, paying cops to look the other way, and being able to like hide stills behind the bathroom walls in all these apartments that I have all over the city. It just like seems like a fun fantasy to kind of live almost a little lawless, but still kind of in a modern era. And yeah, I think the 1920s has been so ballooned up, this Great Gatsby period of before everything crashed and we realized that the world could be terrible again.
Is this in Chicago? You're saying you're going to buy a bunch of apartment complexes?
I'm going to have them in both cities, and I'm going to bootleg between both cities.
Oh, you're going to bootleg between? Okay.
Yeah. So I have a multi-city operation, so I can have my flapper girls, and then in New York that I have this cool little club where I get to sit in the corner, kind of like the Green Mill in Chicago. And then, of course, I buy the Green Mill in Chicago because I have that much money from bootlegging.
Sure.
And that sort of stuff.
So you're going to push Capone off of his turf at the Green Mill. You're going to take the corner booth. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because I have a multi-city plan.
Okay. All right.
I'm covering the continental states here. I'm moving out to LA very soon.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, with a stop in Denver.
You're gonna introduce the talkies.
Yes, I want to be around at the talkies with my modern knowledge. So Nathan and I've had this conversation before of like people who overly put movies of this period on a pedestal just because they were first. Mm-hmm. And I think it's Nathan's quote. He was like, "We don't make movies like that anymore because we found a better way." And it's very, very true. So now imagine how cool I am when the first talkies come out and I'm making Spielberg action flicks.
we could just imagine how many minds we could blow all the way to the moon when we put out Spaceballs in 1929.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Okay, I'm just gonna play just a regular run of the mill Joe Grunt who's at the movies, during that time, watching a film you guys put up there. Wait. But how did he get from his house to the bar? What happened in between? What happened? Is he a ghost? What happened? Is he dead now? What's going on?
Was it The Hustler where it's like 15 minutes of Paul Newman driving just to get from one hustle to another, and you're like, why are we showing all these damn driving shots?
Because the audience gets lost
to sell Buicks. That's what.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Okay, Brian. If you're bootlegging in this time, what is your preferred booze? And what is the carton or container you are hiding it in as you transport it?
So I think I'm doing the stills, so I can make anything from moonshine to bourbon because I have all the options here because I'm starting with that base layer.
Give me one hooch. One type of hooch.
Bourbon.
Okay. Made out of what?
Made outside of Kentucky.
Okay.
And I'm putting it in wood crates.
Okay.
With straw in between the bottles.
Okay.
And I'm putting that inside a larger wood crate surrounded by soap.
Amazing. Okay. Is this made out of corn or is this a wheat whiskey? What is this?
I think starting at my base of operations started in Chicago, so it's going to be corn based.
Good, excellent, good, a good corn fire water, very nice.
Yes.
All right, well that's.
I want to throw in that there's one thing from the Roaring '20s. I almost added this on my list, but there's one thing I wish never had gone away, and that is Art Deco.
Yes.
It still to this day to me looks modern. Like now it's vintage, but it's also modern all at once. And there's sort of this mythological part of the 20s, this era between the wars that never existed, but is going to live forever somehow. Like if you look at the aesthetic of the New Yorker, it's all like their little cartoons and the fonts, and it's trying to capture this just very romanticized idea of New York that they're, they want to exist in people's consciousness forever. And, but also it was one of those times where it was like, it seemed so excessively happy and hedonistic. And, what was waiting for them at the end of the decade was, oh boy, but
yeah,
it's a good pick.
what people don't know is through that whole decade, basically, mothers across the country were sobbing, crying, and protesting for people to quit the drink, and for men to return home and pay attention to their families. And also, thank you to Prohibition, we got income tax as well.
Oh, thank God.
Yes, right. Yes. Yeah. So, also, actually, was it who's one of our greatest American political dynasties? The Kennedys grew their fortune and power during Prohibition as well. Joe Kennedy actually had the exclusive distributorship of it was either Cutty Sark or what was the other big whiskey from Ireland or Scotland? Excuse me. Oh my God!
Famous Grouse, maybe. Macallan.
It may have been. It was like Macallan or Cutty Sark, one of those two that he had exclusive rights to in America. So, but yeah, sorry, off the topic there. Let's go to that was Brian's number 4. Let's go straight to Nathan for his number 4. Give it to us, my man.
All right, I want to describe a person to you. This is a young man. He's in his 20s. He's cavorting around London. His ego's gotten a little big for him. He's staying out all night, drinking, gambling, womanizing, racking up huge debts. Remind you of anybody?
Me.
And he goes on to be the dean of St. Paul's Cathedral in London. So that's where the similarities to he and I end. But I'm talking about John Donne, my personal favorite of the Elizabethan poets of the Elizabethan era in London. So we're talking about 1590 to 1610. That is absolutely where I would want to be. You're going to meet so many personalities, and you're going to experience high art at a level that has rarely existed at any other point in history. So other than John Donne, the colorful character I just mentioned, who he had 12 children, he was absolutely living a lavish lifestyle in his younger days, and then becomes his poetry is still well renowned. Some phrases that he introduced are like "For whom the bell tolls" and "No man is an island." Then he, went on to become a lawyer and then a man of the cloth. Fascinating character. Would love to hang out with him. Then you've got Ben Jonson, another renowned playwright who also killed a man in a duel. 2 armies faced off, and they said, "We'll send out our toughest guy. You send out our toughest guy, 1-on-1." They sent out the playwright and poet, and this motherfucker killed a guy. It's rumored that he wrote the epitaph for Shakespeare. I don't know how true that is. But then you've got Christopher Marlowe, another playwright who was also a spy who was stabbed in the eye, allegedly over a dispute of a bill in a tavern, but could have possibly been because he was a spy. So you could hang out with him. Or you could hang out with Sir Walter Raleigh, who was the adventurer and poet. Everybody was writing poetry. There you go. Oh. But he carved poetry into Queen Elizabeth's window. He was an adventurer. He traveled to South America. He popularized the idea of the lost city of gold, and he was eventually executed because the guy just couldn't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. And then, of course, you've got the granddaddy of them all, the supreme leader, William Shakespeare. You can head to Shakespeare's Globe and see the actual Shakespearean plays as they were first presented. And then you have, of course, Queen Elizabeth herself, one of the great women characters in history who achieved a level of power despite the patriarchal society. So all of these people, all of the sort of Renaissance art and music concentrated in one city at the time, a city I happen to, which may surprise you guys, be very fond of. So Elizabethan London is actually, now that I'm thinking about it, number 4 seems a little low, but that's my number 4.
Okay, now, this guy, John Dunn, he was a man about town. He was known to be a hearty enjoyer of the women, hearty enjoyer of the taverns, all those kind of things. But later on in his life, it said that he lost a wife during childbirth.
Yeah, their 12th child. Their
12th child. He was forever depressed. His father-in-law would never give him his blessing, so they had to get married in secret as well.
Yep.
A lot of interesting stuff. Also, I thought maybe this is why you mentioned him. And also, if it is, like, this is very flattering. he lived at a house that one of his benefactors owned called Mitchum. So that's really flattering. Thank you.
He did. He did.
Wow.
Yeah. I believe that was outside of London, and after his wife died, he had to move. Or maybe it was when he moved back to London. Yeah, but he did live in Mitchum. That's true. Which was, of course, named after the great movie star Robert Mitchum.
Yes, it was. Yes. Who also was able to travel back in time and made himself known.
Yeah.
So,
what were these years again, Nathan?
I'm thinking roughly 1590 to 1610. There's some leeway on either side. I know Walter Raleigh wasn't executed until much later, but
because it just reminds me of one of my favorite stories about spies from this era. It might have been Queen Mary was before Elizabeth because she was Princess Elizabeth.
Yeah. So
either way, the whole story of the spies being sent out, and there was a guy named John D. I don't know if he was working for Elizabeth or for Mary, but the Queen used to sign her letters to him because he was out spying in other countries. She liked 00 because it made eyes. That was kind of like the look. And then he would sign his letters back using his favorite lucky number 7 to offer protection. But to one up her, he would sign his letters back to her 007. So he was one of the first British spies. And then that is the rumor to where Ian Fleming stole it for Mr. James Bond.
That's pretty good.
Yes, that's one of my favorite facts from that period.
That's a great story.
That's like when I mentioned Christopher Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe is one of and I am absolutely against the perpetrating the conspiracy theory that Shakespeare did not write Shakespeare's plays. I think he absolutely did. But Marlowe is one of the people who's been thrown around, and Marlowe's a fascinating character, but he was only 29 years old, and he was well known as a playwright, and he was most likely, if not a homosexual, then bisexual, and certainly a guy who was getting around and having a lot of fun with a lot of people, but then somehow believed he could do all of these things and be a spy, and the endless intrigue. Again, it's another thing like with the people in Rome is there's been so many dramatizations of these characters that I just want to meet the genuine article.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of fun ones. My most recent one I like is David Mitchell playing Shakespeare in the show Upstart Crow, which is obviously just a ludicrous version of it, but it's fun. But yeah, meeting distilling all of these portrayals and meeting the actual human being and seeing what made them tick, that would just be that's if there is an afterlife where I get to choose what I do, this is what I would do. I would go meet these people and see what they were like as human beings and not as ideas and fictitious characters.
You think that John, obviously everyone then was drunk all the time, right? Like people were just drinking, but do you think that he was truly an evolved person in where like he sort of moved beyond like the normal social mores, or do you think he had like a little bit of a good screw loose, where he was able to.
Are we talking about Shakespeare or Marlowe?
No, Dunn.
Oh, John Dunn.
Yeah.
I think to be as exceptional as all of these people were to still be talked about hundreds of years later, when you look at our present time and the people who they're going to be talking about 400 years from now, several of them had a screw loose. So I think the eccentricities that we would actually find would be pretty amazing. Yeah.
I in my short research and reading about him, I really enjoyed his use of allegories and like juxtaposition and whatnot. I thought that was very cool. And I now am a convert, and I will be going back and reading some Dunn. So that was Nathan's number 4. And I just realized I forgot to give you the scores for number 5. So I should do that as well.
Well, I get 0 for number 5.
Well, you know that. I should have said I need to tell Brian what his score was. So, Brian, I loved you bringing up Howard Zinn and sort of the expected truths of history as taught to us when we were younger, but throwing them on their head and giving us something new. So I gave you a bonus point for doing your own Howard Zinning on number 5. So you got 4 points.
Holy shit.
For number 5. An unprecedented occurrence Prince during
That's
Uber Cinco.
awesome.
Number 4, also Brian. I was a little. I wanted to hear more about your movie take, so I'm only giving you 2 for your number 4. And Nathan, just by inspiring me in a short period of time with Mr. John Dunn, I'm giving you 3 for number 4. Ooh. And don't think the next round is going to be as easy, boys. So, all right.
This is like we're doing like a Golden State Warriors versus the Trailblazers, just Steph Curry and Dame just tossing up threes. This is.
Everyone is launching from the logo. All right. Yes. All right, Brian. Give us your number 3 favorite historical period to visit.
All right. So number 3, I have the American West, 1840s-ish.
Ooh,
so,
dangerous. Woo.
Yeah. So I have this purely on there to appease the reptilian side of me. This is my Westworld desires, if you will, to live without laws. It's a side of me I'm not proud of, but would very much like to experience. And I am well aware that being white allows me to visit this time period without initial consequence. And it would be kind of fun to be the Robin Hood in this era, if you could, to take the outlaw aspect of it to make yourself the good guy. So to being able to make wages that benefit those less fortunate and in that time and kill people you determine to be bad on a whim with little to no recourse. So here's what I mean. On the heroic side of this venture into time, just it'd be great to like straddle up and just shoot a slave owner in the face, or to murder a bunch of settlers who are tossing natives out of their land, or challenge a railroad tycoon to a duel and pull the old Back to the Future 3 boilerplate bulletproof vest trick so you always win the duel. And yes, it would be fun to rob a bank. Yeah. That is the selfish way. That is one of my selfish things I want to do that only benefits me. It's my Red Dead Redemption desire to be there. And I feel like it'd be cool to have to rob a bad bank and then use the funds to help some of these other people.
Sure. Oh, fuck that. Rob a good bank. Who cares?
Yes. I will rob the nearest bank.
Question. Which railroad mogul would you prefer to kill in a duel, Vanderbilt or Minnesota's own James J. Hill?
Oof. See, now this is where I wish I did more research on railroad tycoons, because all of my research lately has been just transcontinental, which doesn't happen until the 1870s.
Okay.
So I don't know who was behind that, but I mean, Vanderbilt just sounds like a guy who needs to be shot.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that's a name, like, especially if it's like if you ever met a Rockefeller or something during that time in the Roaring 20s, I feel like I would have tried sticking it to a Rockefeller.
Sure.
So we'll go with Vanderbilt.
You mean violently, right? Not sexually.
Of course.
Okay. All right. Okay. You just said sticking it to, and I didn't know what kind of phrase you were using, so I just wanted to clarify. But yeah. Okay. American West. What other? Is there a certain state you want to go to? Is there a certain landscape you want to explore? Or is this just about killing bad guys? And I'm like, this just sounds like the show Dexter, but in leather chaps and 10-gallon hats.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's exactly what I want. I think Utah would be an interesting place to explore.
Okay.
That's the backdrop that we all know from the Hollywood myths of the raising canyons and things like that.
Sure.
I feel like this would be a cool time to visit either like Wyoming, Colorado, because we haven't gotten that far. This is before 1849ers gold rush type stuff. So I feel like that's.
And this is during the time when Wyoming, Colorado was the name of one state. So I think you're right by saying that. Yeah.
There we go. I think it's.
Is that true? What?
No, they both were not states at that point, but that general territory. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some general vicinity in the Louisiana Purchase at this time. Yes. In which I am not affecting natives and just in the open land going willy-nilly. That would be fantastic.
It's an interesting period because it in such a short time, like within 100 years of that romanticized era, it became such a worldwide phenomenon of the film, of the Western, the genre. It's a whole genre. It's a huge part of cinema. Mm-hmm. And so many of the best of them were actually shot in Europe. Yeah. And the myth, it's one of those where the myth is so enormous. We're seeing it in real life would just shine so much light on what was actually happening and what is an invention of Sergio Leone or John Ford or whoever.
What's the Western, the man who shot Liberty Valance, whatever the last line of that movie is when the legend becomes fact, print the legend. And that's pretty much what the Wild West has become in modern Hollywood tales. Is like, that's the way history was because it feels good to us.
One of the most ahead of its time movies ever, just as an aside, for sure.
Yeah, and to your point too about being 1840, 1850, you go 100 years into the future, we're in plush post-war suburbanite 1950s life. Talk about the biggest 180 in terms of a century from that to that is pretty crazy.
Well, and
for white people, yes.
For white people. I think it goes without saying anything we're talking about is coming from a place of privilege.
Yes. And, people don't realize the majority of a cowboy's life was just trying to keep cows going in one direction. I mean, it wasn't pretty work. It's, it's back-breaking, it's ass-breaking, it's but your legs are tired at the end of the day.
I would just have more guns and then just take the things I needed as I was going.
Sure.
So I don't have to worry about cows. Like, I'll just get a cow in the next town by shooting that cow's owner, getting what I need and moving on.
And that was, Brian, your number 3. Thank you so much for sharing your affinity for cowboys and rodeos. That was so Westy of you. God, that was Westy. Love it. Nathan, moving right along, give us your numero 3, please.
So number 3 comes from a period of my life that a period of history that I started studying really early on in my life that I developed a great interest in. And then it waned as I got older and realized just how fucking incredibly depressing it is. So I'm going to just focus on the very end of it when we came out of that, talking about the end of the American Civil War.
Whoa.
Specifically the end.
Blood-soaked Reconstruction. Oh, I love it. Please describe.
Well, here's the thing I would like to point out about the Civil War that affects the modern day is that there was a group of people who were marching around carrying a Confederate flag. Mm-hmm. And they caused the complete annihilation of their own infrastructure, economic collapse, the death of so many Americans that if you do the math, it comes out to about 9/11 every 4 days for a 3.5-year period. All the while, they were holding millions of people in slavery and raping and torturing them, and with everything that all those wonderful things that come with slavery. Yep. So those people, to be at the surrender of Lee to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse and just see those people have to get their asses handed to them and admit that they were wrong and failed would just be so satisfying. And that's what I think about whenever I see people in today's climate here in 2020 carrying the Confederate flag around as a source of pride. I would just love to take all of them with me and watch General Lee lead his ragged army that hadn't been fed in days and have to lay down their arms to the actual heroic Americans like Grant and Sherman and Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, people who actually were on the right side of history, and tell them to go back to the South and fend for themselves without their free slave labor. They can go fuck themselves. And whatever you do, don't pick up those Confederate flags again because it doesn't end well. That's what I would really like to do.
And it's all that for states' rights. It just seems a little too much.
And which right was it? Which of the rights was it they liked? Oh, the right to have slaves. Yeah, that seems.
That's why it's bad. Okay.
But then, so I'll get off my soapbox there, and I will say, to make it a little lighter, is you boys might remember. This is where I would intervene, much like Brian was talking about earlier. This is the one place I would like to intervene after another hero of mine, Conan O'Brien, set up a similar fantasy scenario in his studio at late night when he set up a zip line where he reenacted Ford's Theater, and he ziplined from the top of his studio down and scissor kicked John Wilkes Booth and prevented him from assassinating Abraham Lincoln. And I think that would be an absolute blast to try and circumvent that assassination. In fact, somebody I work with, we worked together a while ago, and we were talking about like, oh, if this person and that person happened to star in a TV show, what would it be? And we played that hypothetical game. And then finally we did it for me and her, and we came across, we would be detectives, but we wouldn't really be detectives because detectives didn't exist. So like I would be like an early photographer developer, like in my dark room, getting black and white prints of Civil War photos, and you'd be some sort of chemist. Yep. Yeah. And she'd be some sort of chemist who is, coming up with concoctions that didn't work, but we'd be in Civil War era DC, and we'd just be solving crimes. But then the season finale, or the series finale, would be we'd capture John Wilkes Booth. That's the one guy who I'd really love to just nail him when he was before he could commit the crime. And then I want to throw out my other favorite fact. Just a random fact that's so weird is the first major engagement of the Civil War took place at a Manassas Junction, Virginia, in the homestead of a Wilmer McLean. And there was actually 2 battles there. And Wilmer McLean said, "Fuck this, I'm leaving." And he moved to the little sleepy town of Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia, where in 1865 on his land, the 2 armies met again. And it was in his living room where Lee and Grant signed the surrender that ended the war. So the war essentially began in his front yard and ended in his living room.
Wow.
Is that was that on purpose or just a cruel joke for him and he hated visitors, but he made a great lemonade? Like, what's the...
It was just a coincidence, just one of those weird random factoids of history.
Wow. That's incredible. That's incredible. Then I freaking make them put their noses in their own shit. That's what I say too. I love that very much. Those are y'all's, sorry to boil it down to that, but I'm, a little bit. Yeah. That's number 3. Let me score you out here, boys. Brian, you made us talk about cowboys, and I freaking love that. I'm going to give you 3 points for that one. And because you also chose the right railroad tycoon to murder, which is Vanderbilt. Thank you for not killing, because without that, I wouldn't have been able to go visit the James J. Hill House in St. Paul as a young 3rd grader on a school trip. So thank you very much. Nathan, I love your end of the Civil War thing. I wanted, I was going to give you 2 points, but then you gave us that fact to end us out, and you just know how to give me what I want. So thank you very much. That's 3 points for you as well. I'm feeling generous today, guys. All right, let's move it right along. Let's keep it steaming forward. Nathan, let's go to you for your number 2. I'm very curious what this is, because I looked and I don't know what you're going to say here, but I have an idea. Go for it.
May 16th, 1992.
Yeah.
In your research, I'm sure you found this. It was when Weird Al released his parody of Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit called Smells Like Nirvana.
That's what it was?
No. That was what I found in my research. I
thought it was Teacher's Day in Malaysia you were referring to.
Well, that's nice too. I'm glad that happened.
Nice. Okay. All right. Yeah. I was thinking, it was the birth of Jeff Skinner. You guys know Jeff Skinner?
No.
Oh, yeah. He's a 28-year-old Canadian hockey player. He plays for the Buffalo Sabres, and he was the 2011 Rookie of the Year. So that's what I thought. Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm striking gold here.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Well, okay, Nathan, go for it.
I'm just going to tell you what I did on May 16th, 1992.
Wait, is this the first time you kissed a girl?
Oh, God, we're off by it. Over it. Let's see. We're off by a solid 10 years.
Okay.
No, so I woke up in my parents' home in Roseville, Illinois, and I ate a nice breakfast, and I went to school in the last week of school. No, it was mostly peanut butter toast for me. I never was a big eggs guy.
Oh, very
so probably
nice.
some peanut butter toast, maybe some bacon. like
Okay.
grapefruit juice. Yeah.
Ooh.
Mm.
Oh, put the bacon on the peanut butter toast in the future. It's delicious. And
Well, I was a young man at the time. I mean,
I know. But you always have to describe a meal for me on this podcast. All right, keep going.
That's true. So then my mom went to the cupboard and got out the paprika, and but then my mom packed me my lunch in my Chicago Bulls plastic lunchbox, and she sent my sister and I off to school. And it was at the very end of school, the last week of school. So pretty much the teachers had checked out. Summer weather was coming in. We spent most of the day out at recess playing basketball, pretending we were Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen.
Sure.
Swinging on the swings, thrown up because we were on the what was called the ocean wave, which I believe now has been outlawed by most international organizations as a form of torture.
Sure.
Because it was just it was a series of wooden planks in an octagon on metal chains around a pole, and that was apparently how we were supposed to have fun. We lost 7 good men that day, but
that sounds vaguely familiar, actually. And I'm trying to, sorry. Keep going.
It probably had a different name at your school, but
yeah.
But then, so we had a fun day with all my friends, and then came home and just immediately went outside to play. My neighbors were the Cole Cledger family next door, and the Singletons, and several other families in the neighborhood, and we played basketball on little hoops because we were like 5 or 6,
Sure.
And then our parents brought us in, and I had a nice dinner and played with my dog Penny, Cocker Spaniel, and then we watched Game 7 of the Chicago Bulls versus the New York Knicks. And I was so young and so innocent that I didn't even realize how much weight a Game 7 carried. I was just so sure that, of course, Michael Jordan's going to win. He's Michael Jordan. Since I had been conscious as a person, Michael Jordan hadn't lost a game. So why would he lose now? And sure enough, the Bulls won by 30-some points. But the Bulls started the game and I was watching. And then halftime came and I ran back outside again. And I had the little basketball hoop. And my mom could watch from the kitchen sink, just watching over me, make sure I was safe. And I was shooting baskets, and she would yell, "Nathan, the game's starting again, the game's starting again." And I just was having so much fun playing basketball that I didn't come in until halfway through the third quarter when they made me, because they knew me well as a kid, and they knew I would want to see Michael Jordan dispatch Patrick Ewing and John Starks and the New York Knicks. And the Bulls won, and the future was bright. They had several years of domination ahead of them. And then I laid my head down with my 2 parents and the 2 cars and the 1 sister and the dog and the beautiful little town of Roseville with my whole future ahead of me. May 16th, 1992.
Wow.
With a Confederate flag blowing in the wind.
No.
Well, that was 3 houses down.
It's interesting you talk about this because I also remember hating John Starks as a child, and I was in Minnesota, so I was rooting for the Timberwolves, who couldn't even sniff the keisters of the Knicks. What a beautiful. Do you remember what day of the week it was?
I don't. I mean,
it was a Saturday. So.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Well, that throws my whole thing out of whack.
Well, or maybe it was. I don't know. Well, that's what the internet said, but you can never trust the internet, right? You can't. But that's amazing. That's
I may be confusing it with the next year when they beat the Knicks in Game 6.
Sure.
All I remember was it was a game against the Knicks. But
I was racking my brain because I was thinking, this had to have been a Bulls thing, right? And then I'm like, wait, but May the playoffs weren't done yet, so it wasn't a championship thing, and I didn't think about Jordan extinguishing the Knicks in fine, knife to the throat fashion like he did that year. Because I mean, there's no better defeat or kill, if you will, in a playoff series than a Game 7. I mean, to say no to someone. I also thought perhaps it was. The day that you were trying to mark the day that UN peacekeepers withdrew from Sarajevo. That's also what I was, on my.
That's a big one.
On my radar.
I thought about that as I laid my little head down to sleep, but it was an afterthought, really.
What? And then the other one I thought, this is the last one I thought, was that was the day that your favorite horse, Pine Bluff, won the 118th Preakness.
I had actually placed a pretty significant wager on Daddy's little grandpa. So
I thought you would react aggressively to that insult I just sent your way. But that's Nathan's number 2. Brian, let's move to your number 2. Keep the train steaming westward towards that ocean.
Yes. So this is before we started going westward for this period of time.
Sure.
And this period that I've chosen is probably the longest stretch of time that I would want to affect because there's multiple events that happen in this time period. So
okay.
I have the American Revolution starting in 1774, and I would come back home after 1795-ish. So the reason why I want to be a fly on the wall during the writing of the Declaration of Independence. Like, peek my head out and offer unsolicited suggestions. Like, hey, Benny F., Tommy J., you too, John, Robert, and Roger. This is just a friendly suggestion, but you may want to put like a bold underline, maybe italicize that all men are created equal part. Plus, trust me, it'll go a long way if you just really, really emphasize that. Or maybe change men to humans, something like that. It's... You know, we want to get the chicks in there too, and maybe all the other folks we may be causing problems for. And since we've stolen a bunch of this land, especially if we keep going, maybe mandate like most of it's theirs. Just a thought, might want to put that in writing. I know the king doesn't care, but we might want to write that down. And I also feel like this time period would be very similar to now in terms of divisiveness. And the reason I picked 1774, 2 years before the Declaration of Independence.
Howard's in.
Yeah. Okay. What about it?
Defend that divisiveness you're talking about. Give me some examples, please.
So loyalists versus patriots. So this is what I want to feel like. What is the air feel like in 1774 where we're building up to this separation? How is it between people who want to stay a part of the UK and people who want to separate? What is that tension like in those conversations in the average pub on the street?
Quick point of order. Did the United Kingdom exist at that point?
Probably not. Whatever you want to say. England.
Ooh, okay. No, I'm just trying to get facts straight here. Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm a modern boy. So between like the loyalists thinking everything is dandy, and then what we call the patriots then wanting to make changes. I just find it very ironic now that being a patriot means the exact opposite. It means just staying with the order the way things are just because that's the way it is. So just blind loyalty to one side of the aisle. And also I think it would be helpful to be in the Constitution writers room as well, either adding some specifics or like an expiration date to the Second Amendment. Like, dudes, this will make total sense right now with a bunch of redcoat stragglers and us building a fresh government that could repeat the past. I understand this, but let's give this a rewrite maybe every 50 years or so at a minimum. Give this thing a old spell check. So that's why I have the American Revolution on there. One big time period that affected me right before my Egyptian phase. Unfortunately, it's when I saw Mel Gibson, The Patriot, is when I started doing my research, realizing how badly historically inaccurate that movie is, that I started doing a lot more American Revolution research and kind of got into it. So
well, you have made my mother's day, because I told my mother about the topics today, and my mom's number 1 was the American Revolution, and so she will be so glad that you brought it up.
I am here to make her day, and I am so glad that I did.
Yeah.
And the only reason we're here is because of Mel Gibson, and that's a problem. We know.
in my grandmother's house, so my mom's parents had my mother late in life, so they were born very early in the 20th century, and so their house was a bit antiquated even when I was a kid going to see it. But they had built my grandpa had put in a projector hidden behind like a piece of artwork, like for like slides and like films, like rolling films. Pretty ahead of his time, I like to think. Yeah. But it was a picture of a colonial family walking home from church in the country's very idyllic thing. And then on either side, he had like in the circular portraits, the old fashioned like sort of oval things.
Yeah.
Portraits of Martha and George Washington. This was on my grandma's wall as a kid. And I asked my mom, I was like, did you ever get an explanation for that? And she said, well, not really. And so I don't know, but But also, I mean, my mom's read she's read biographies of John Adams and Ben Franklin and whatnot, and she read the Hamilton autobiography, or not autobiography, that the music was based on years before it came out. So Brian, just speaking from good old Mama Hennenfent, thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay.
And if I ever want to decorate my home theater setup, I'm definitely going to put up portraits of the Washington.
Brian, I'm curious, beyond changing history, beyond changing the Constitution, what would you want to do in this time period?
I feel like I'd be a good bar owner during this time. I feel like I'd want to be the fly on the wall, hearing all these conversations happening. But I feel like I would like to be a bipartisan bar. So there was no this isn't a patriot bar or loyalist bar. It's just the bar in some little town. And it'd be cool to have a Mount Vernon-esque manor. I wouldn't be of such royalty to have that high up, to have that amount of land, being just a bar owner during this time. But to be able to visit some sort of establishment like that, just to see it as it was built, as it was designed during that time.
Sure.
Would be cool. Plus, you'd probably see, this is 17. You'd probably start seeing the initial construction of the White House at this time, which would be probably pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
I also at those times they drank beer for every meal of the day. So
I would be raking in the dough.
You would be making some good do re mi, as a singer would say. Thank you very much.
Sterling silver coin.
Yes. All right. So give me, or I will give you your scores for your number twos. Nathan, you painted your picture so expertly, so specifically. And I too hate John Starks. I wish I wish I had called Howard Zinn on you, so you could have given me more details. I'm giving you the full three there. Brian,
unlike John Starks in Game 4 of the '94 Finals. What?
Boom! Oh! Improvise! Howard Zinn +1. Nathan, you get 4 for that round. Holy crap! Unprecedented, in the moment, uppage of points. First time you heard it here on Uber Cinco. Ryan, I love all your ideas of helping to form a better nation going forward for us currently and for the generations to come. I'm giving you 2 on your answer, +1 for defending your Howard Zinn call very well. That's 3 for you.
Awesome.
There. Okay, Brian, we already heard your number 1.
Correct. I'm out.
Of being there during the Great Pyramid. So Nathan, we're coming right back to you. Give us your number 1. What is it? Please indulge us.
My number 1, this won't surprise either of you or anybody who knows me, and probably anybody who's listened to this show, is Swingin' London, 1960s, about 62 to 1970. I want to be there for the whole thing. I want to drink it in. If both of you have been visitors, yes, there will be a lot of drinking. I tried to recreate it from 2010 to 2013, and I drank a lot in that period, but I couldn't quite come up with the magic. But I think in terms of the culture of the last 100 years, this certainly is what affected me the most, and I think its fingerprints are on everything that came afterwards. And I'm going to try to edit myself here because this is something I could go on about for hours. But from the very early 60s, you had some sort of bohemian characters started to play the blues in clubs. It was a little bit out there. It was a little bit strange. And so you had characters like that would eventually become the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and various other bands that would spawn other great, well-known artists as diverse as David Bowie and Elton John. And they're all interconnected, and you can weave a web and point fingers at all of that. But it all starts early in London, and it swelled into this movement that sort of took over the world. And
sorry, Nathan. Howard Zinn.
Yeah.
Were the Stones really that influential? Give me 3 reasons why they influenced music going forward, or I don't know. Yeah.
Well, there was absolutely no other rock band in America until the Stones became huge in America. That basically, I would say the 2 bands, Led Zeppelin included, but the Stones first, actually brought the blues back to America, where it had sort of faded, and then the Stones sort of popularized it. You could say bastardized, and that would be totally accurate. And then there's no other band that still had a cultural impact to this day other than the Rolling Stones.
Bingo, bango. That was an easy Howard Zinn bonus. There you go. I gave it to you. All right, keep going. Sorry.
You threw me a softball when you gave me the Stones.
Yeah.
Aside from music, which I could go on for all day. Well, I guess it culminates in 1967 with the Beatles releasing Sgt. Pepper's and a young man named Jimi Hendrix showing up in London. And all these wonderful musicians had been doing wonderful things. And then Jimi Hendrix just came over and tossed all of them in the garbage and rewrote the playbook. But also at that time, the word zeitgeist is thrown around a lot, but it really feels like it was there because the film started reflecting it and the comedy started reflecting it. Like, I'm thinking early, my name is Michael Caine and I am now a movie star. Films like Alfie and the Icarus File, he's sort of has this everyman look, but also within the sort of swinging Technicolor aesthetic that has been developing. And then on the subversive side, like the music was very much undercutting civilization as we knew it at the time. It was throwing away societal norms. And then in comedy, there were things like Marty Feldman and I'm blanking on a few of the early shows. At Last, the 1948 show was one. A few things are leading up to it, and a group of young writers had been working on several shows together, and then in 1969 they all coalesce and form Monty Python. And so you've got the Beatles, you've got the Stones, you've got Led Zeppelin, you've got all of these people forming into things that are still so relevant and influential to this day, and they're all hanging out together. I would love to have just been there the whole time, just even if I was just a guy who got to go to the parties for the whole decade. Meet all these people, see their creative process. It was mad. I tried to recreate it there. I visited those sites. I met a couple people who were there, and I tried to soak in their stories and whatnot. But it'll never be the same as actually being there. Swing in London, the 1960s, to me is absolutely. I mean, I still every day I listen to the music. I appreciate a bit of the comedy. That's my number one. Easy.
That was great, Nathan. Thank you very much. That was excellent. You hit it all. You hit all the holes that I was looking for you to hit there. Does
that really blow you to the moon?
No, you did. That blew me to the moon. And I will give you your final score here. I'm going to give you the 3 points because I liked how you described some things and kept a little hidden, and then you gave us these giant hits, these giant bombs that we all love still today. So that gives you 4 points for the final round. So as I tally up these scores, I'll give you a topic to talk about. Favorite streets in downtown Chicago. Go.
Wells.
Ooh, downtown. That's a good one. Wells is pretty good.
It's fun north and south of the river.
That's true. I think
I've tallied the scores. Sorry to cut you off, Brian. Here we are.
Yeah.
But I am.
Wow, should I take my shirt off now? What?
Yes, please.
Why have you waited so long?
Rip it in two. I am pleased to announce that the winner of top 5 historical periods you would love to visit is none other than the number one cool guy. Man, he's nice. Woo! He's a good dude. Brian Ernst.
Woo!
Nice job, Brian, with a score of 15 to Nathan's 14. Nathan, you made a valiant comeback. But Brian's +1 Howard Zinn bonus for his number 2 pushed him over the finish line. And now, as we said at the beginning of the show, it's time for the Fast Five to end off the show. So here it is. The top 5 Billie Eilish style night shirts. Number 5, the 9th grade basketball winter holiday roundup shootout spectacular night shirt. How big is a 14-year-old boy or girl? It remains a mystery, but Carl thought he'd give it a shot by airballing it and ordering all triple XLs. This is the night shirt that gets better as it thins, but you still only wear it Tuesday through Thursday on account of the egregious teal and purple color combo. Come on, Carl. Number 4, The Art Museum or Yachting Regatta, Many Flags French nightshirt. Back in the 90s, before your parents had to pay for you, they did cultural things like going to a museum, or was it that mom took sailing lessons for a bit? Either way, this shirt has a bunch of flags and a little bit of French. After coming down to breakfast on a Saturday morning, you're pretty sure mom had a crush on the boat captain as she gets that faraway look in her eyes when this oversized nightshirt enters the room. The Flags nightshirt is very long for when everyone used to tuck their shirts into their pleated shorts with braided belts. Number 3. The 1998 NBA champion Utah Jazz nightshirt. Your Aunt Karen couldn't believe she found an NBA championship t-shirt, basically untouched, at the Goodwill for only $25, just before your birthday, no less. And an extra, extra large will fit enough, right? Happy birthday. Thanks, Aunt Karen. You wear this nightshirt only on mail-less Sundays as you softly leak emotional tears rewatching The Last Dance. Number 2.
I'm standing up for that one.
Thank you. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Pizza Champ nightshirt. Backwards and pepperoni and cowabunga, dudes. Pizza grease and all. This nightshirt is worn Fridays through Thursdays and every day in between. Number 1. The Spuds MacKenzie Budweiser nightshirt. It's 80s soft, back when you could advertise beer to kids on the TV with a cute dog. Your dad mentions he swaddled you once in it while in a fuss when there was no blankets near. And wait, hold on. Oh God, he won't stop talking. Dad, just please. I can see you're wriggling nervously, not sure if you want to share this next idea in your head. Maybe don't. Oh dear God, he is. I'm trapped. Oh dear Dad, please God, no. And there he's gone. The mouth opened. Your dad informs you he's pretty sure he was wearing that shirt the night you were made. But it's funny and interesting because he was actually drunk on Coors Banquet, not Budweiser. So there's that. Ha ha. Good memories, he says as he tousles your hair and whistles off to the couch. You make a solemn vow to only drink when it's Miller time. You never don this nightshirt again. And that's this week's edition of Uber Cinco. Please do rate and review our show on Apple. And send in your suggestions at bizbear.biz. And please tell your friends and loved ones about Uber Cinco if you've enjoyed. We love that hearty wom. And send your negative retorts to help@comcast.com. From Room of Guitars with a lot of pluck has been
Brian Ernst.
And the main himself, perched high above Old Irving Park, has been
Nathan Hennenfent.
And from the heart of the Sopoco shopping district, I've been Mitch Brinkman. And as Biz Bear always says, blow your nose and text a friend your whereabouts before diving into Jared Leto's limo. Auf Wiedersehen and adios.
You've just listened to Uber Cinco, a production of UBK Studios. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your fine podcasts from.
If you like what you hear and want to support the show, please visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/UBK Studios. Every little bit helps us keep the lights on and the bill collectors at bay.
Keep tabs on us on all the social media at UBK Studios, and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see that we really are just a bunch of good Midwestern boys.